Chris Johnson, not Christopher, as you were saying. Christopher means you're in trouble. So
Right.
your friends, your family, everybody knows that you are Chris, right?
Yep.
Now, Chris, here's what I know of you. Okay, let me start us here. I'm pretty sure I saw you sitting in the learning to be a judge line at the Glenwild thing. That was you, right?
Yep. I was there. They let me in for some
They
reason,
let
but
you in.
yeah.
And I think I'd like to hear some more about that, but let's not jump too far ahead chronologically. The other thing that I feel like I know you for specifically is you're the guy who plays for the dancers, right?
Somebody has to do it.
Someone has to do it. Now, I do want to hear sort of your origin story and stuff, but tell me about that. How did you get how did that was that you thought dancing was cool? Do you know dancers? How does that happen? Because as far as I know, locally you're known as, "Oh yeah, he's the guy who plays for dancers."
So
The guy, you know.
it was all an accident, really. I got a call to go do a gig for a random church party. Hey, I don't know how or why it happened, but at the same gig, they had also called for a few Highland dancers, and their instructor was Rochelle Augustine. She runs a little dance studio out in, oh man, out west from me. Yeah,
I'll look it up.
yeah, you'll have to look it up. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's early, or it's always early when you have a child.
Yeah.
But at that gig, Rochelle was like, "Oh, you're a piper. I heard you. Oh, can you play Orange and Blue?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Okay, 100, do it at 116 beats per minute, and off we go." And oh, by the way, play the first part twice, and we did it, and she's like, "Okay, we need a dance piper. You know, how about in about 6 months, there's the Moab Scots on the Rocks contest. You prep, and we'll let you play for that as the dance piper." And just like that, she just said, "Do you want to do it?" And I thought, well, I like being important. That really was it. I thought it was cool, and I thought I was gonna be in the money, traveling, all those glorious dreams that you
Oh, of
expect
course,
of the
yeah.
rich and famous. And one cool thing that happened about a few weeks before Moab, I got to go and play. They do a dance contest at the First Presbyterian Church in October every year. This is back when Moab was in the butt cold winter in November, which was a
Right.
terrible time. But I got to go and play for that one. They called it a little contest, and yeah, it wasn't. But the judge there, bless her, that was Gail Bacon. And I got up there thinking, okay, I can do this. I've listened to some recordings, I know the tunes, and it turns out there are so many little things that you gotta learn and figure out. I was playing, so for the sword dance, it's Gilly Callum. Nobody likes that tune. It sounds like a doubling exercise. But it turns out, not only does it need to be 112 beats per minute for the older dancers, moving on up to 116 beats per minute for the youngins, because they can't jump as high. You would never think about it, but the
Wow.
little
Yeah, I had
ones,
not thought of that.
yeah, the little ones can't jump as high.
Yeah,
So
they don't
you've
spend
got
much
to,
time in the air.
yeah, you've got to up the tempos for them. So the recordings that you heard for the premieres, you found those on YouTube. They're too slow, and so the judge is looking at me, giving me that "hey, faster, faster, faster" look. And then you've got they know what parts should go with the dance. With Gilly Callum, in my head, it was like, okay, just keep playing Gilly Callum until it's time to be done. But the first part has a little more low work. You play the tune again, but you add in a little more high work. It's almost kind of Pibrock-ish, where every time you're repeating it, you're either going higher or lower or changing up just a little bit so that the dancers know that you've switched parts, and they need to know that. And usually, if you start going up high, all of the other recordings say, hey, this is your second time through. This is kind of their memory check to say, okay, he's going up higher. This is the second time through. If it's 3 times through, okay, I've got one more. If it's the second time through, it's about time to do the quick step. And I wasn't doing any of that.
Oh,
I had
no.
I had no idea. And so the judge just raised her hand. She sat me down. She's like, we're going to watch, and we're going to play a recording for just a couple, and then you're going to get back out there, and I'm going to talk to you while they're dancing. And so she's judging them. And then she's like, okay, you hear how it went higher now. And then she's, still writing stuff down. She was absolutely amazing. Now, it was mostly the sword dance with that sort of trouble, because, the rest, you're doing a strathspey, 4-part strathspey. It needs to be Marquis of Huntley Highland fling, or orange and blue. So those are kind of the standard ones. People might accept fiddler's joy, but the dancers know which tunes they like. So it's not just any strathspey that will do. Marquis of Huntley and orange and blue are kind of your bread and butter there, and you've got to play those ones, or you'll have some dance moms not really happy.
They'll
It's
be upset,
okay.
yeah.
It's okay to play different ones, but it's best to make the dancers as comfortable as you can. So we got through that contest, and Gail Bacon was just fantastic. She was nice to me. She was good. I learned that the fees for dance piping are kind of pegged. You get some travel money, yeah, but you get about the same amount you'd get from 2 funerals for an 8-hour day of piping.
That's a lot of piping, man.
It's a lot of piping for that much, which explains why so few people do it.
Yeah.
It's not about the money. Yeah. Now, if you travel, you get like a quarter or something for every mile you travel, or something along those
Sure,
lines. And,
IRS rate or whatever it is.
yeah, and that makes sense for, going down to Moab or going to California and that stuff. I've only done Utah ones, but I'm
Right.
working my way. There are no other dance pipers nearby. I wish there were. You can split a dance day or a dance contest, and they will pay you the same amount. So if any of your listeners are thinking that they want to try something like that, splitting it just makes it so much better.
So
So,
if anybody's thinking Chris could really use some backup,
oh,
no
please.
more 8-hour days.
Well, and it's nuts to do that during a contest, during
Yeah.
during a Salt Lake Games weekend, to try to get a break to compete in
Right.
solo, or
do a
go.
3-hour block of dance piping and then go do a P-Brook and then come back to it.
It can be done, but it's a mess. And so if anybody wants to get in on that, there is definitely no kind of turf to be intruded upon. It's really cool. One of the other dance pipers, Matt Turnbull. Oh, I got to talk to him and see him at the Salt Lake games after that Moab game. That following year, I actually cared about dance piping, and I didn't do the Salt Lake games that year, but I got to watch Matt do it, and he gave me some advice, and he told me how he does it. He's got a metronome going the whole time.
Yeah, that's one of the things I
Oh.
wanted to ask you about. Has he just got it wired up to his ear?
He's got it on his phone on the ground, really. Because if it's in your ear, when you've got a tempo change for some of the dances, like the sword dance has a slow and a fast part, well, then you've got that slow tempo stuck in your ear while you're trying to do something fast. And so on the ground with the metronome works pretty well. And you can't, it's funny because you can't really watch the dancers during the contest because your eyes will pick the most, like, I don't want to say flamboyant, but the dancer that moves the most. Your eyes are going to pick that one, and you're going to start playing to him, and that's not fair. So you're really kind of watching the.
Oh, sure, yeah, because then you're gonna match. I mean, speaking of like how high they can jump and stuff, you're gonna start matching that specific dancer, huh?
And if one just happens to be taller than the rest of the group, uh-oh, you're the other ones can't keep up, and so you kind of just zone out. You watch the metronome, you get it going. You can stay pegged to it. You can just watch off into the distance, but you're really trying not to watch anyone in particular. You just wouldn't think about that.
No,
it's
there's so much nuance to this that I had not thought of.
But it's really kind of fun. It's the closest thing that I can find to a marathon in piping. Your brain is so nervous for those first 30 minutes. Those gals and guys have worked so hard, and that their mothers will come after you if you screw up.
Yeah.
But after about 30 minutes, your brain just goes, I'm out of nervous chemical. I'm out of juice. And you get into this really cool Zen state where you just...
Are you getting a piper's high?
I think so, really. It's really cool.
This is
because
intriguing.
you just forget that it's high pressure because it's been high pressure for an hour. And so you just go and you think, all right, I've got 10 more times to play the fling. I've got 5 more times to play the fling. Okay, now let's go. And then you just realize that you finished. And it feels really great. It's
Wow.
a feeling that I haven't felt soloing or in a band setting. It's different, and it's really you feel accomplished, more like you survived than you beat
yeah.
someone.
I had not expected when asking you about this to have been so drawn into it. Almost thou convinceth me, Chris. that dance
It's
piping
fun.
is
Get
yeah.
Orange and Blue, Marquis of Huntley up to speed. Anytime any dancer's glad for it. It's just so much better to have a live piper
Mm-hmm.
because they will match how tall you are.
Mm.
They'll match how old you are. They're so happy to see you. So get those tunes up and you're good. The people to look for, Donald McPhee. If you look for any of his recordings,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the standard, the gold standard. So you can look at the complete collection by Donald McPhee, and all of the tunes are there. They're all good. They're it's just a fantastic CD.
Oh. So man, I have so many questions running through my head here. I was kind of aware that there were, of course, some particularities because like the Garden Valley Pipe Band has joined up with a dance group a couple times for like our St. Patrick's Day concerts.
Oh yeah.
The Shelley Irish Dance Group here in Utah County, and I have asked Tina before there, like, do you want us to, we've got pipers who can play you a hornpipe or a reel or a strathspey or whatever you want. You want live pipers. I mean, we're there, and she always prefers a recording. And I understood that's, you don't have to have the variables of like, well, will this piper play consistently on tempo and will they switch the part at the right time and stuff like that, And so I had this, I kind of had this understanding that like, okay, they're particular about it. But I hadn't, I mean, man, that thing about how high they can jump, especially, that's just blown my mind. Of course that would have an effect. That's so interesting.
And they're forgiven too. They really are. They'll forgive you a lot. They're good folks.
They're just nice and happy to have you there.
Yeah.
Though it sounds like the dancers might forgive you, but maybe their moms won't.
I've never had a bad experience with a parent.
Maybe that's just because you're really good, though. Huh?
Well, that first contest was ample fodder for something like that.
Yeah.
But I've never had that experience. They're just really happy. And if you've got a metronome, really they're going to be fine because they can't say you favored somebody else. They can't say you were totally out. You had a metronome. If you're on the beat, screw up the notes, you're fine. Just keep the beat. And the dancers know their dance, and yeah, it might be a small distraction, but it's okay. You're part of the game.
Is it strategic in that way for you to use like, an older style physical metronome so it can be sitting like, standing up off the stage where like you can see it, but also like if anybody around wants to look, they can see there is a metronome and it is running, you can see it clicking back and forth.
I haven't tried that. I haven't.
I've probably worked too much in like insurance liability and stuff like that. I'm just like constantly looking for like how can I avoid liability in a situation. So that's probably the warping of my own brain there.
No, usually I'll just set up my iPad, and my iPad works as kind of a nice mirror. And so if I set it to the right angle, I can watch the metronome and still see the dancers kind of in peripheral vision.
Yeah.
So you can get an idea if you're on with them as a group or not. And I haven't tried the physical metronome. The only thing that might bother me is just the physical metronomes I have they're loud.
Yeah,
they're loud, and if I'm listening to the click and I'm hearing the click, then that'll still mess me up for the fast parts later on.
Right. So you want that visual cue that you can look away from when you want to.
Exactly.
I see.
That's exactly it.
I see. That's interesting. I had wondered, are you familiar with this app, the Piper's Metronome, that came out not too long ago?
Everybody's got it but me, and it really does great work on the dot cut thing. It really does.
It does, yeah. Yeah, and I've used it for sets, because you can set up like, all right, I'm going to go from my march to my strathspey to my reel, and I can set up the metronome to make those transitions when I want it to,
And that's awesome.
That is fun, but I wondered if that would be at all applicable for dancing. But probably in that sort of like live performance situation, you really want more flexibility than that could give you.
Well, yeah, because sometimes you're doing the premieres and you've got a tempo in mind, and then you find out that all three of them, or all, that those first couple of sets really tell you what the tempo is going to be for the whole group. Sometimes I go, all right, we're gonna go. 112, and you start going, and they tell you, no, this is too slow, pick it up. And so you need just a little bit of flexibility, because if all three of them are struggling, okay, you got something to fix, but you want to make sure you keep that for the rest of the group. And so those first couple of groups will help you get settled. It's fun, it's weird, it's stressful. If anybody asked me like, why do you do this, I really couldn't tell you besides
Not
that.
sure.
The piper's high is amazing.
Yeah.
The fact that you're keeping it alive feels pretty cool.
Yeah.
There aren't as many dance pipers as I wish, and that's mostly just because contests are usually right alongside. I mean, piping contests are next to the dance contests, and it's
Right.
really
Yeah.
hard to do both. So if you're picking one, that's kind of what you're picking, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I wish there were more,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really cool, and getting a buddy to help you out is the best. You
Mm-hmm.
cover each other. You play one, they play one. You take an event, they take an event. It's the best, and you get the best of both worlds.
No, how do your pipes last playing for that long? Have you? Do you? I mean, you sitting
Oh,
on synthetic stuff, or are you trying to make cane reeds work for that long, or do you have a set you can swap out halfway through, or?
I've tried a couple of things. So my setup, I'm rocking the Ganaway hide bag, so
Okay.
cowhide.
Yep. I'm. I'm.
Yeah,
I'm also I'm a disciple of the Ganaway for sure.
I love it. Now, a lot of people are looking at the Lee and Son sheepskin and saying
Yes.
it's the best thing, and everyone's all up in that. And I, I, I I'm really happy with the Ganaway. I've got no problems. I love how it feels. It's great. I've got a set of David nail pipes that I had made for me about 6 years ago.
Cool.
In the drones, I'm doing full cannings, all of the
Mm.
cannings, and it's high pitch. So they're synthetic. I have played around with bass cane action for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
They don't survive a dance contest as well as I wish,
Mm-hmm.
and they're really hard to bring back to life
Mm.
in the middle of a dance contest. I can swap in another synthetic bass reed if I need to, which I usually have one or two just in the pocket in case.
Yeah.
But for a cane, you still need time to get it warm and get it up to speed. And for a cane backup, you'd have to be playing it to keep it in condition to have it ready to go.
Yeah.
And so that just never worked. I usually do tap off one of my tenors though. Just
Mm.
for that long, any amount of air I can save is great. So I usually have a nice, easy dance piping chanter or hanging out to.
Mm-hmm.
I try not to have that be my solo chanter.
Yeah.
And usually with a moose valve, I'm able to stop most of the moisture from going in. I love my moose valve.
Oh yeah, I got one a few years ago, and definitely I've no interest in ever using anything else. Works so
I mean,
well.
the flaps. Who thought the flaps were a good idea?
I know, right? It's one of
They're
those things that's like,
awful.
it's just like, well, this is what we have, so I guess give me some chapstick, we'll make it work, you know?
Oh, so bad. And the moose valve is just great. And so for the setup, the the cannons usually hold up pretty well. The wood body of the cannons will absorb enough moisture to try to keep the tongue free.
Mm,
It takes a long time for the cannons to get shut off due to moisture, which
mm-hmm.
is awesome. Um, and usually we make it. I'll keep a spare reed just in case. And since I tap one of my tenors,
Yeah.
I can just take it out. And then if my running tenor gets too wet, I'll
Swap
take it
them.
out and swap it in and
Mm-hmm.
let the other one dry out. And we'll carry on. And then absolute worst case scenario, I've got small pipes
Mm,
or the Blair electric chanter just for the oh no, I can't go any longer. Let's
yeah.
get an amp and an electric chanter just in case.
Have you ever tried doing the either with their that little kit that Blair sells, or just rigging it up yourself, plugging that Blair chanter into your pipe so it looks like you're playing a full set of pipes?
I haven't tried it.
Yeah.
It too much work. If
Yeah.
I'm gonna fake it, people are gonna know.
Yeah.
But I love that chanter. That's what I've been using. I have a 4 month old, and so in the middle of the night, if I'm just sitting up watching him and he's working his way to sleep in a swing or something like that, I'll just pull out the electric chanter and go
Yeah.
and wait for him to calm down.
Mm,
It's been great.
yeah. I'm gonna get me one of them someday, one of these days.
Yeah, it's great. You can play anywhere.
Yeah.
It's more expensive than I wish.
Oh, of course.
Really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
we're pipers. We spend money on things.
yeah. That's isn't that the truth? It's a hobby that if you're lucky, you can almost get it to pay for itself sometimes.
Almost.
Usually not even close though. So
Almost.
then now we've I love all of this, but I do also want to roll it back a little bit. Tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up, first of all? And as you were growing up, where did you first encounter pipe bands, bagpiping, etc.? And then how did you get started in it? Who taught you and stuff like that? So if it's back to birth, take me back to birth, Chris. I want to hear all about you.
Pipes were not that far back. So I grew up in Ogden. I am a Ben Lomond alumni.
Oh, are you? What years were you going to Ben Lomond?
So I graduated in 2008.
Man,
So
I graduated from Payson High School in 2007, and so I'm sure we played together we went up to, what was it? There was some festival that Ben Lomond. It wasn't.
I
the Salt Lake
know.
Festival.
We would go to the Salt Lake Festival usually, and
Yeah.
we even sent some folks to Payson once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I know that we saw the Ben Lomond band around while I was in high school, so I bet we at least saw each other. I mean, isn't that always the case within this small niche community anyway, right?
Oh yeah, everyone knows each other ish. We've all seen each other, but the Ben Lomond thing. So my sister was 4 years older than me, and she did the cheerleading thing, and so when we would go and we did that family thing where we went and watched my sister do the cheerleading thing. Hooray! Well, at the football games at Ben Lomond, I saw bagpipers, and I think that was the first time that I was exposed to the bagpipes besides like Scrooge McDuck on cartoons or anything like that.
Oh, and I guess actually, sorry, Chris, I should probably clarify, just in case there's any listener that isn't aware. I think most people already know. In Utah, there are 2 high schools that have had bagpiping programs like as part of the curricula, so you could choose between, if you're going to do concert band or orchestra, you could also do pipe band or choir or anything else. And those are Ben Lomond High School and Payson High School. So that's why that was significant. That's why you encountered bagpipes at these football games and stuff like that.
And it was the best. Now they have both bands there, and if I'm honest, I didn't notice either one. I just said, "Oh look, bagpipes," and that was it. And then 4 years later, I'm a freshman at Ben Lomond, desperate to be one of the cool kids. My sister had gone through Ben Lomond. She had done the valedictorian thing. I was looking for something. To make my mark. And the first day you have an assembly and in come the bagpipers. And everyone's clapping and cheering. And I just look at that and I go, is that really the currency of the realm here? Is that really what it takes to be a cool kid in high school? Wearing a skirt and playing that screechy instrument. And I thought, well, chess team ain't gonna do it. Yeah. And so I signed up for beginning pipes, and
so it's like somewhat bewildered. You're like, well, if that's what it is, then I'll do it.
If that's what it took, yeah. and that was it. And the pipes did a march in the assembly. They played kind of a jiggy version of Scotland the Brave for their drill team to do something to. Definitely not the Highland fling as we called it, but. Nobody knew better and nobody cared. It was fun. Sure. That was the best part. Nobody was saying, oh, you're out of tune, or no, you really shouldn't be playing Pumpkins Fancy when you've only been playing the pipes for 3 months. It was the peak of we didn't know better and we had a blast. Yeah. The gal that taught me, so at Ben Lomond, the students, like, the seniors or juniors would be teaching beginning pipes. Right. And so I learned from a gal named Marin Adams. So I don't know if she still plays, if lost touch, but Candace Winley was also the pipe major at the time, and they were teaching us, and we learned correct fingering. We learned the correct way to play the doublings and everything. We didn't use any book that I recognize now that I think about it. Mm-hmm. We didn't. It was really loosey-goosey, all based on what student happened to be the teacher at the time. But
that is one of the things that fascinates me about the Ben Lomond program, that it survived and did so well. Where the difference between the Ben Lomond program and the Payson program was that at Payson you had multiple people like Don Smith that were establishing this junior high class pipe program that would feed into this high school program, which had a paid staff member teaching, right?
We had supervision. I mean, sorry, we had supervision.
Sure. It wasn't y'all kids do what you want.
We had the band teacher, Miss Maxim or Corey Jensen, and they were both fantastic. Just bagpiping wasn't their instrument. Really.
Right.
Yeah, but Corey was the best. He put up with all of the crap that we gave him. Actually, on my Facebook feed, like in 2008. I just got the photo of when we went down to the San Francisco Music Festival as a bagpipe band. We were a woodwind band
Oh,
when we went to that contest down there, and nobody knew how to judge a pipe band, so everyone thought it was cool, and we won everything, and we all thought we were just on top of the world.
that's an awesome idea. Take a pipe band to a woodwind competition.
Yeah, it was great. We
I
we
love
had the
that.
trophies. Me and Jesse Fry got soloist trophies because again, woodwind soloist. How can you trump a bagpiper
Yeah.
and a snare drummer? It was cool, but it was all pretty pretty loose, and we kept playing. We would play at the football games, the volleyball games, the sporting, anything that was sporting. We were there, and we also went and did gigs at the school. That was like my favorite part. I realize it now that the school will sometimes say, "Oh, you want a bagpipe band? We've got a bagpipe band. You want to
Yeah,
donate to the school
you're right.
for the
Yeah,
bagpipe band?" We were earning money for school and
yeah.
getting out of class to do it. It was great.
You're like the college student athletes, right? That make the all that NCAA money for the colleges, but on the high school level, it's the
It was
pipers.
awesome. And if you were wearing a kilt, it was a hall pass. You could just walk anywhere, do anything, because the teachers were like, "Oh, gig? Yep, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a gig."
So Christopher Johnson wearing a kilt to school every single day.
Almost, almost, but it was a lot of fun. And just out of high school, I got picked up by Wasatch District. The way it happened, I was in Jackson Hole doing a contest because I was grade four soloing, just going, well, I was the best at Ben Lomond. I must be hot stuff. So I went to go and try to win a bunch of contests to continue proving I was hot stuff. So I'm at Jackson Hole, and it's just freezing in the morning because the lower grades go in the morning.
Yeah.
That's your prize for being a low grade.
Yeah.
And it was cold. The my drones were shutting off, and Justin Howland and saw me struggling and loaned me a drone reed and just saved my rear, just completely saved my rear and helped me out. And then I saw them again at Payson, and they helped tune me up and did okay at Payson, and so I started playing with them for a while. Oh, and kept learning there, drove everybody there nuts because I didn't really get this is when a band plays and this is when a band does not play.
Hmm.
Because, again, it was loosey goosey at that moment. And
Yeah.
if we wanted to check your tuning, you just turned around and checked your tuning.
Hmm.
In a band setting, you don't do that all the time.
Yeah.
It's,
Maybe
it,
especially, I mean, Wasatch is one of the sort of like best organized and sort of like, what would you call it? There are like methods of procedure for a lot of things that exist in Wasatch that maybe don't even in a lot of other local bands.
they're so well
It's a
organized.
well-oiled machine, right?
It's they're a fantastic group.
Hmm.
They really are fantastic group. I learned a ton there, got pushed to my limits there, traveled, did it it was really good. They did really well by me.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a LDS mission after that. Uh, didn't play pipes for 2 years, but I had my chanter, just
Oh,
in
you did take
case.
your chanter, huh?
I did, and I didn't play it anywhere near as much as well, maybe I did play it as much as I should have, if I'm thinking about it,
It
but
depends on
it,
what kind of point of view you're taking on it, right?
yeah,
It's too
but
bad
it
the Blair
wasn't
digital
much.
chanter wasn't an option at that time, huh?
Oh
Probably would have
man,
played a
that
lot
would have been
more.
great.
Yeah.
That would have been great, but it was kind of helpful to just not have one extra thing to worry about. It would have been like taking a pet on the mission,
Yeah.
really. I would have been worrying about it. I would have been worried that they might get stolen or
Yeah.
the heat, the humidity. It was just one less thing to worry about. And
Yeah.
I got back from that, got back with Wasatch, got married. Still playing with Wasatch. About 8 ish years ago. Things.
Is this where it gets juicy? You can tell me why you abandoned Wasatch?
Oh man,
Give
the
me all
juice
the
is
yeah.
coming.
Bring it.
The juice is coming. If I'm honest, I just was at a point where I needed less intensity. I was in my final years in college.
Hmm.
I was getting used to being married. I was living in an apartment, like a married student apartment, and getting room to practice was really hard, especially
Yeah,
in the
not the
winter.
easiest thing in the world. Yeah.
And you know, Wasatch was a high octane place that I just wasn't. I wasn't having fun because I really wanted to. I I don't know. It just wasn't fun at that point in time,
Right. It's
and
not just different strokes for different folks. Sometimes just different seasons in your own life. You need something that's higher demand that'll push you, and sometimes you just need something that's lower demand that you can kind of relax into.
and during one of those times, and plus to travel as much as Wasatch did was kind of expensive. They
For sure.
covered
Yeah.
a lot, but you're in college, you're newly married, that money mattered,
Yeah.
and it was just a lot. And so during one of those seasons of, oh man, this is a lot, and this is a lot to do, and want to do it right. You don't want to be the guy in the circle that has a clanger when the band is really trying to move up to grade two. That was before they were in grade two,
Yeah.
and it was right when they were knocking on the door and doing a lot of contests trying to move up. Well, during one of their break seasons, actually, yeah, kind of close to now. I well, actually, it's near the end of the contest season. I went to the Soldier Hollow Classic, the sheepdog contest that they
Yeah.
have in Midway every year, which is amazing.
I've never
And
gone. I always think, oh, that's so cool. I should go next year, and I never made it.
it makes you hate sheep. It really makes you hate sheep because I'm on the dog side.
You're
I
on the
love
dog
dogs.
side.
And so they let the dog loose. He runs up the mountain. He brings the sheep back, and the evil sheep, starts attacking the dog, and the dog loses. And you go, "Well, that sheep is a jerk. I'm going to eat him." And then you do, because you
And
can
then you
eat sheep.
do.
And never mind that the dog kind of looks like a predator and whatnot. No, the
Right.
dog
Don't
is.
think about this too hard.
No. But there, I saw the Salt Lake Scots for the first time in a while, and their snare drummer, Jesse Fry, we went to Ben Lomond together.
Yeah.
So that was a really cool reunion thing. And Jessie was never shy about the Scots. She was going to the Scots back when we were in high school together. And she would always say, "Hey, come see the Scots, come see the Scots." And I was like, yeah, I'm a senior in high school. I got all these things figured out. I don't need a band, blah, blah, blah. But I saw Jessie there, and she introduced me to Trevor DeMoss. I sat and listened to them jam, and we exchanged phone numbers just because it'd been a while, and sure, why not? And there was no recruiting. There was nothing shady or anything. You can't recruit the wandering or the willing, whatever you want to call it.
Sure. Yeah.
And they just let me go to a practice once when they were practicing and Wasatch was in the off season. And I went and I looked, and it just was kind of chillax, and it fit for that time. And
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to be said negative about either sort of way of doing things, right? It seems to me like it's important that both of these options exist and many others as well, because otherwise, when the one option doesn't fit what an individual needs, then the alternative is like stop playing, and that's not what you want, right?
Oh,
Somewhere to
no.
land is good.
And it was. I still don't know if I articulated why I left the really well to the Wasatch folks. So hey, if you're listening, here it is. But it it really was just a time and seasons, a fit thing. And at that point, I was just kind of looking for something a little more relaxed. I enjoy the community gigs a lot.
Yeah.
Now Wasatch does those, like they do. I enjoy
Oh,
parades.
yeah.
I'm a weirdo. I enjoy parades.
That is
okay?
weird.
I know, but it's fun, and the Scots were doing a lot of that stuff at the time.
Yeah.
Ian, the band manager, he's everywhere. He knows everyone and has everything going on, and there's a lot of community stuff to be done, and that just kind of fit. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to the Scots for a leadership position. No way. I was middle of the pack, just happy to be there, and it was really a chance to kind of see a new way of doing it. And
Yeah.
one of the perks of going to a less stressful environment was that I got more into dance piping and solos.
Right. Right.
And that's about the time that I started looking at dance piping. And since the Scots care about contests, they care. We compete. We do our darndest, but we travel a lot less for a contest's sake. And so I had a little bit more freedom to do dance piping here and there, or there's just a little more flexibility there. And that was something that fit and really worked out. And nowadays, now that I'm doing the pipe sergeant thing at the Scots, I've got a little bit more of a tough decision to make, or at least trying to break out to go do the contest when I can. And the dance community has been really good to me to do that.
Yeah.
In Moab, they let me go to solo or to play for drummers. And in Salt Lake, they let me break out for a half hour or so to go jump into the circle for a band contest. I still owe Trevor for letting me get off the hook of tuning the band and helping out there, but
Yeah, that's
people
one
have been
thing I was
really
going to
good.
ask you about. To what degree, I mean, when you do that, do you have a second set of pipes that you can tune to the band real quick, or does the band tune to you when you come running over from the dance stage? Like, how do you get prepped in that small amount of time?
2 words: tone protector.
Mm.
So the
Little
tone.
plug. Is this our sponsor? Is this our sponsor for
No,
this
oh my
episode?
gosh, no. It's stupid expensive, and we should all make our own, because the little digital reader doesn't do anything. It's just it's the packet, right?
Yeah.
You could shove that packet into any other chanter, and you probably would be fine.
Yeah.
But the tone protector, if I give it a fresh pack, my band chanter takes about 5 minutes to come in. Like it's
Ready
quick
to go,
and
huh?
yeah. And so I just have a dance chanter and a band chanter, and poof,
You just
give
play,
a little
play
rush to
Scotland
the
the Brave
drums.
as you walk across the park to your band, and you're ready by the time you get there.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I mean, we all tried different humidity solutions over the years, like the Highland one with the like shoe desiccant squishy stuff that
Right,
always
yeah.
seemed to dry out.
Yeah.
The pipe cases with the squishy stuff and the charcoal, all that stuff.
There's the good old just dump kitty litter in your bag as well.
Who thought that was a good idea? I threw away. I opened up an old set of pipes of mine, and I saw those boxes of kitty litter, and I
Yeah.
tossed that junk this
Get
week.
out of here.
It's like, what were we thinking? But yeah, it works out, and everybody's been really good to let me straddle so many different places.
Yeah.
Everyone's just been really, really kind that way. I've been lucky.
Well, but what about straddling things outside of bagpiping? I mean, marriage, but now with a child as well. You know, I mean, how sustainable is this? You know, not
It's a
not to
good
get you into an
question.
existential crisis or anything, but you know, as also a person who likes piping but has children, it can be challenging.
You know, it's been weird. These 4 months have been a lot of online contests.
That's true.
So
It is
I've
happening
been,
in the online era, isn't it?
which is the best thing that ever happened to us, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me explain. I really,
Yeah,
so
there are some
I-
people who would disagree with you strongly. So give us yeah, you better explain.
yeah.
Huh?
So I do the grade 2 solo thing, and so I'm in grade 2, trying to push my way up to grade 1.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, just to prove to myself that I can be the kind of person that gets to grade 1.
Yeah.
You know, I have no plans of trying to get into Simon Fraser. I have no plans to try to do any of that. Although if
But
you're
hey,
listening, then you'll take
yeah, I
me.
was gonna say if they call you, I mean, you'll answer the
I mean,
call, right?
Who wouldn't? But I really want to just prove to myself that I can get there. But that used to mean a lot of money. That used to mean a lot of traveling. So right before COVID, me and Trevor were both grade 2, and we were signing up for contests. We had our plane tickets booked before COVID.
Oh,
We had plane tickets booked to go to California, Colorado. We were set. We were ready to go and do it. We had saved up the money. We were there. We were ready to make that sacrifice and try. But then COVID happened, and Trevor somehow freaking evolved into a Charizard out of nowhere, winning the clasp, doing all sorts of amazing things. He left me in the dust, and it's been really fun to watch him. But getting through grade 2 has been a struggle for me. I've needed a lot of contests to start winning some of the WUSPBA ones, and the online arena just made it possible. One, you listen to yourself when you turn in an online submission. Do any of us really read the judging sheets and really try to do what they tell us?
well, I think most of us read the judging sheets to see how wrong the judges were,
Right? Or to see if you can read it, to
Yeah,
see if
if
you can
read it
decipher
at all
it.
in the first place, yeah.
And then you look at the bottom, you see 1 through 5, and that tells you all you need to know, and then you put it in a
Yeah.
binder, and you never look at it.
Yeah.
But when you're recording, and you've got multiple ones to submit, I've got 6 versions of my MSR. Well, which one do I turn in? You listen, and oh no, you don't like the way something sounds.
Right. Well, usually if you have 6 versions, you don't like any of them, right? It's like
Oh
none of
man.
these are good enough. I have to do 12 versions. I'm gonna do
So
more.
you'll love this. So I was doing the World Online. I love how Yori calls it the World Online Bagpiping Contest, but I just finished those submissions last week. So I usually pipe downstairs on the ground level, and I've got my window, so I've got some face lighting, right? So that the video looks better. I've got face lighting, nothing's in shadow or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm 10 minutes into my Pibrook. I'm in the Battle of Aldern #1, starting to do the Crun Lewis, getting into it, and then the missionaries are walking down the street. The missionaries look in the window, you see their faces light up, and they smile and they wave and they start walking towards my door.
And you're like, no, no, no.
And on the video, you can see my eyebrows, see my face, and I look at them and I just shake my head. And I'm still going, I'm still going, I'm still playing. They knock on the door. I don't answer. Now, I turned in that Pibrook. That was my best. I felt so bad. I chased him down in my kilt after. I was like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. But it was just one of those recording moments where you go, I mean, who? This is kind of a new normal, a new thing.
Yeah.
But you listen to yourself, and you get so much better by listening to yourself than you'd ever do otherwise.
Oh yeah, it makes a huge
New contests open up to you, like Ohio, the Clasp,
right. Suddenly,
BCPA.
without any travel, you can do like what 10 times the number of contests that used to be available to you. You know?
Yeah, for less money,
Yeah.
less time, less leaving a wife and baby at home.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're still recording, and you're still taking that time away from whoever's happened to be watching the child at the moment. But and so my wife has sacrificed and made it work, and bless her for letting her. She's been awesome. She's letting me go to Pleasanton in a couple weeks. That's kind of one of the first in-person ones I'm going to be doing in a while. She's let me go and do that, and if all goes well, I'll put in my application. I'm hoping that this is the year, but online has made it possible.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to get out otherwise, and I'm really grateful.
Hello, friends. Just a quick note to make you aware, this podcast is something that I love doing, and I will keep doing it no matter what. But if you want to send me money, I won't say a nay. The easiest way to do that is through Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/DroningOnPodcast. We do regular drawings for bagpipey albums, books, sheet music, and more, including Droning On swag. All patrons are in the figurative hat from whence the names of winners are drawn, and there are other benefits to members as well. They're all listed there at patreon.com/DroningOnPodcast. And speaking of swag, another way to support the show is to buy cool stuff from my little online shop, bagpipeswag.com. There you can find Droning On stuff, as well as other pipey and drummy things that my friends and I make. And if you feel so inclined, I genuinely invite you to follow the show on Facebook. It's super fun to have a way to interact over there, to discuss past episodes, and I also like to bounce ideas off of you, my friends, ask you for input on upcoming interviews, that kind of stuff. I'd like to invite you to join in on virtual book clubs and probably lots of other cool stuff that I just haven't even thought of yet as of this recording. It's easy to find. Just get on Facebook and search Droning On Podcast. And if Instagram is more your jam, we're also on there at droning.on.podcast. You can also email the show at thedroningonpodcast@gmail.com. And links to these sites, social media accounts, and more are in the show notes. Leaving the show a positive rating and review helps others to find it, so feel free to do that. And thank you again for listening, you cool human you. It is really interesting to think about, like, from what I understand, so I'm not really a golf guy, but from what I understand, there has been in the last 2 years like a really interesting sort of upset of the expected winners of a lot of golf competitions that's being accredited to people who normally do really well with a lot of spectators, and people who usually do not do well with a lot of spectators. Suddenly, the latter group are winning competitions, and the former group aren't doing as well as they usually would. And I have wondered, like, to what degree is it just like, some people are just going to do a lot better playing in their backyard in front of a camera than they do in front of a big group of people, while other people can keep their cool in front of a physical judge, a person actually looking at them, and how that plays into the final scores, the markings, and the rankings, right? But I hadn't thought of this other aspect that you bring up, that just being able to do a lot of competitions, that really does make a difference. It's like, the competitions become a part of almost like your, I don't want to say practice, but it's like, well, I don't know if
It is how you practice.
Right? Isn't that the best practice? Like the best practice is actually doing the thing.
Well, every time you're recording,
You're
you're
more reps,
competing.
right? Is that what it comes
Yeah.
down to?
Well, you're competing. You
Yeah.
dress up, you record,
Yeah.
you compete. So that means every time you're practicing, you're competing. Now, there's something really different between doing as many reps as you want and then turning one in compared to the live online proctored contests.
Yeah.
The NorCal solos have been fantastic. So you'll join a Zoom meeting.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get into a breakout room with a steward, maybe the judge, depending on how they do it. And then you'll record on your end, and then they will say something to prove that that's the real recording.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're playing live for a judge
Yeah.
at that point. And that feels just the same as if you were at the games. It feels the same as if they were on the other side of the table. The nerves wise, it feels real. But for the others, it's a completely different game because everyone's turning in their best. Nobody's just gonna tank on the day. Nobody's gonna break
There'll
down.
be no scratches.
Yeah, so it's different. The quality is just through the roof, which makes me wonder, our judges going to be disappointed when we all go live again.
Like the caliber of what they've been listening to is suddenly like so much more pleasant. It's suddenly like, everybody's in tune, everybody plays their music pretty darn well. This has been great, and then they go back to live and they have to deal with all the problems.
I think it's a thing. I just hope that doesn't ruin all of the CPLs, the numbers that you get.
Right. Now,
Because we've spoiled them.
Are you still pursuing judging yourself actively, or is that something you've kind of put off to the side for now? Or were you ever? Like, I just remember you at that Glenn Wild thing, and so you were one of a few who seemed to be sort of going for that accreditation.
I mean, I'd love to learn about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best way to get to that point is to make that grade 1 status and do well and learn that first. Just because you get pickier with yourself the higher up you get, and that means you'll do better at picking out stuff from others. I hadn't really considered that an end goal. I don't think it would be any problem for the community to have more local judges.
Sure, yeah.
I think it'd be really great to home grow our own. It's expensive for games to fly people in. Now you want people to do that. I mean, you want that to happen because let's face it, using a homegrown judge is not ideal. They know people.
They play with a band usually, or at least have.
Yeah, you can't. That's just would leave a bad taste, or at least look bad, right? But I mean, there's got to be a new crop of judges at some point.
Yeah.
And, I think that it would be cool, but right now it's keeping the dance piping thing warm.
Yeah.
Since there aren't a lot of those, I do see a chance in the later days to actually really travel and do that once the other nearby dance pipers are done. And maybe on the judging thing right now, it's the soloing. It's figuring out how to get there and starting to be happy with recordings when make them.
Yeah. I remember having this experience once where I'd been playing pipes for years already, and when I'd been playing pipes for years before I finally actually saw a person dance a strathspey. And that did affect the way I play strathspey. Have you had a similar experience having played so much for dancers? Has it affected the way that you interpret dance music when playing your pipes, even when it's not for a dancer, when it's in a solo MSR or or with a band or whatever it may be?
It's been good and bad. So for dancers, nothing matters more than keeping the beat and that strong light, medium light idiom that we've all had pounded into our heads.
Yeah.
Like really pounded. If you overemphasize that for the dancers, it doesn't work just right.
Interesting.
Like if you really overemphasize it and make sure that it's there, I found that it doesn't quite keep the beat for the dancers as well as you'd want. It's still there. Don't get me wrong. But
maybe in isolation from the actual dancers, are we as a piping community like overshooting the mark to some degree?
I mean, far be it from me to say the entire piping community is, but if I think in the lower lower divisions, yeah, I think in the lower grades, let me rephrase that. Everything not grade 1, yeah, I think
Sure.
so. I
Interesting. I
think
hadn't thought
grade
of
1
that.
has the speed
Yeah.
and the flow to make it work. That flow is really what it is.
Yeah.
Because it, I mean, that strong, weak, medium, thick, weak. That's so you match it when the dancer is hitting the ground and bouncing back up, right?
Mm.
It's giving them the lift to get off the ground and matching them. Well, you've got to keep the flow for them. The steps that they're doing. I that first strong one, yeah, that's strong. That's strong there, but they aren't overexpressing it like we do sometimes,
Mm.
like you hear in solos sometimes. So
Yeah. How interesting. It's like an art form that's been to some degree removed from the original context and
isn't
has
it?
like kind of like mutated into its own thing.
That's how I see it. Now, I am not the deepest in the dance pipe. I'm not the deepest in the band thing, but I do play strathspeys differently for dancers than I do for solos.
Mm.
And sometimes in solos, I'll get called on a little. I need a little bit more of that strathspey idiom all
Mm.
the time, actually, and it drives me crazy.
Mm.
And it's hard for me to compartmentalize that, but it's true. I do think that judges are listening for something different than the dancers are.
Yeah. Interesting. Now, Chris, do you have any non-piping hobbies or things that take up your time? You know, like what aside from, I mean, I don't want to dismiss your family, of course, that's of paramount importance, but sort of aside from sort of like, you know, family duties, work, and piping, what else takes up your time and energy?
Hmm.
Or is there
So,
anything else?
I my hobby used to be picking up new hobbies. I love disc golfing.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
a few years back, before I was as serious in piping as I am now, I would go disc golfing all the time. The workplace I was at had a course, and so during lunch every day we would go out and play disc golf, and I love it. I still will try to get out when I can,
You ever go do that
but
semi-wilderness course in Moab when you go down to the games down
oh, I
there?
want to so
My wife and I
badly.
did that a few years ago. It's really great.
It'll ruin your discs, but it's
That's
fantastic.
true. We just took some cheap frisbees and lost a few. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
yeah.
But I love that. And during the pandemic, I picked up gold panning.
Really,
I
you're a
love gold
prospector
panning.
now, huh?
Yeah. And so up American Fork Canyon is an okay place for Utah. You got to understand that Utah gold is just not good. It's
It
small.
ain't the Black Hills, as I imagine they might say, huh?
It's not. It's flour. We call it flour gold.
Uh,
It's just not good, and you're not making your money back. But I've got a vial on my desk that I'm looking at, full of the gold that I found from American Fort Canyon. Like not even $10. Like don't get excited, but it's shiny and it's pretty and it's just so satisfying to go to a river in the mountains and wash down the dirt, and then you see something sparkly,
yeah.
and it's like a slot machine. It's nature's slot machine,
Oh yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
and
Walk me through this. How does this? What equipment do you take with you? Are you walk in the middle of the stream? Like how long are you out there? The only image that I have for gold panning is like Tom Waits in that movie on Netflix recently. You know, like pretending to be like this gold prospector. Like what does this look like?
so uh, equipment wise, you don't need that much, and so you need a pan, and so gold pans are they're plastic. They're like $15. Deep pan with some riffles on the side. The just waves and waves and waves so that you can gold sinks, right? Gold is
Mm.
heavy. Its
Mm.
specific weight is heavier than anything else. So if you get a pan full of dirt and you put a bunch of water in it and you shake it, the dirt rises to the top and the gold goes to the bottom.
Mm.
And then you can, pan it off and the dirt goes away and the gold stays. Or anything else heavy.
Mm.
Quartz. Oh, I hate quartz because quartz is heavy and it's really hard to separate from the gold.
Gets in the way. Yeah.
So what you do is you take a 5 gallon bucket from Home Depot, and then you get something called a classifier, kind of a sifter, right?
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
And some people do, kitchen sifters, but they make sifters for gold panning that fit in the 5 gallon bucket. So you
Mm.
take a shovel. Well, you go up into the mountains, up American Fork Canyon. There's a great river there. You can dig on the side of the river. or where the water used to be higher and it's not, which is nice. It's really hard to dig in the river. You
Mm,
can, but it's exhausting, right? It takes a lot of energy. You lose a lot of the dirt as you're getting it out of the water.
yeah.
But that doesn't mean people don't do it. They just use dredges and fancy machinery to do it. But
Mm,
for low tech, you just find somewhere where you think there's going to be gold. And you dig in there, you classify the dirt so you get all of the pebbles and the rocks out of it, and you're just left with dirt or really small rocks.
yeah.
And then
And
you
hopefully
can,
gold, right?
hopefully gold. And then you can do it a couple of ways. You can just take a scoop of it, put it in your pan, and wash it off yourself. Or you can take a sluice, which is like a big old long tray with the riffles inside of it, a rubber mat. So you pour the classified dirt on it, and the river will do the washing for you. So you put this tray in the river facing downstream, and you pour the dirt in there, and the gold will sink and get caught in the mats in the sluice, and then the dirt will just wash off downstream. And when you're done, you pick up the sluice, you put it in a 5 gallon bucket, you wash off the mats, and you see what you got.
Wow.
It's just a lot of fun, and it's satisfying. It's not profitable, but
Yeah. But
you know
so a
the,
lot like bagpipes, huh? A lot of fun, satisfying, not profitable.
that depends how much you buy, right?
Yeah. No, it seems to me like some key ingredients in your equipment here though ought to be like a really old beat up cowboy hat with a hole through it, long johns, a false
Nah,
grizzly white beard if you don't have one yourself.
and it's been a while. I don't get out much, but the equipment's really not that much. The knowledge of where to go
Yeah,
is
that's
kind of
key.
that stuff. Because if there's one thing that the Facebook groups will always razz you on is, new person comes on and says, "Hey, where do I go gold panning?" And everybody says, "In the mountains," or whatever. There are some fantastic folks in the community that will say, "Okay, this is where you go. This is where it's legal." Oh, but everybody's got their favorite spot, and they say it's prospecting for a reason. You learn more by going up there and learning to read the river and figure out where to go than you do just asking somebody, "Hey, where do you go?" and getting the pin dropped.
Mm.
You do better testing different places and learning. Oh, that's where gold lives, and then you go up and you look at the river and go, "Okay, I think it's going to be there." And when you're right, it feels great. You go, "Hey, me and Mother Nature just had a moment."
Yeah. I've never done it, but I really love everything to do with mushrooms, and what you're describing
Oh
sounds a
yeah.
lot like truffle hunting.
Oh man, I hear after the wildfires in California,
Yes,
you can
I've
go
been
and
hearing
get
that
some.
too. Some morels gonna be.
Yeah, and I hear that might be profitable, but
Yeah, it might well be. Yeah.
you got to know what you're doing, or else you'll not not find something good to eat.
Yeah. Or you'll find something extra good to eat.
Oh dear. But
No,
no, that sounds awesome. Let me know if you do that.
I will. Yeah, absolutely. What else? What else, man? You are surprising me. What else you got? What else do you do or have done?
I mean, so I was into tennis really hardcore
Yeah.
for high school. Oh, that got lost along with chess. I wish I did more of that, but the hobbies that I can do closer to home now are the ones that
Sure.
really make sense, and bagpiping fits that bill
Yeah.
nowadays.
Well,
It's
and speaking of like bagpiping, sort of like sticking with you, that does it does. I don't want to say it's surprising, but it is I don't know, noteworthy that you got into piping just because you looked around and were like, oh, I guess this is what you'd have to do to be cool in high school. But you're very committed to it now. Are there any significant moments that stick out in your mind that kind of like turned this into a lifelong, at least to this point, pursuit for you, or has it just kind of been that way? Like, is it
going through the
definable in
highlights.
any way, you know?
Looking at the high points, in the solo world. Oh, the first high point that kind of got me hooked was at Pleasanton. I got to bring home a big old trophy from Pleasanton for grade 4. I still can't tell you what it was or what it was for, but I came home with a bunch of medals and a big old trophy, and I displayed that in my college dorm for the year until they asked for it back, which I didn't know they did, which made me super mad.
Oh, at
But
least you didn't lose it in the meantime, huh?
oh, right. But that was the moment that made me go, huh, I could I could do this. But the moments that made me say, oh man, how could I stop doing this? Those have mostly been gigs with gigs with people I really like.
Yeah.
The moments where we would do, like when we play for the Festival of the Trees for the Salt Lake Scots, that is amazing because you're playing for a big old group of people, and I love playing for people. I love playing for an audience, and so doing that for the first time, my first real gig with the Scots was at the Festival of Trees, and they let me do the Amazing Grace solo there. And I mean, maybe it's my ego, I don't know, but it felt really, really, really good. And then there are the times that you play for a funeral, and you play, a tune you've played 1,000 times. You play Amazing Grace, and we all laugh and call it Amazing Disgrace, or we all laugh waiting for somebody to screech on it, looking for anything to spice it up.
Yeah.
Play harmonies when you really shouldn't or don't need to, just because we hate how boring it's gotten. Your first tune, and then you play it at a funeral, and then people are bursting into tears, and they're treating you like you gave them a kidney,
Yeah.
and you're still getting paid.
Right.
It's really something different. When I started hearing some of the people just be grateful for bagpipes at a funeral. Oh, I mean, we in the Utah Scottish Association, we lost Diane Scott in the past year or so during the pandemic, and I got to play that funeral, and combining the performing and then people you like and you care about, all of that together, it just it touches all the right chords for me. And then you throw in, and I've gotten really close with the Utah Scottish Association. I love those guys. They're awesome. They work their tails off to bring the Salt Lake Games for us, and they're not making money hand over fist. They're plowing it all back into it, and to get to go do one of their gigs and be with friends and then play and show off and have an audience, all of it together is great. And then you play a pibroch by yourself, and you go into that piping zen state, and you finish, and you realize that your brain is really happy that you got that deep focus moment. Your brain says, hey, I focus on something really hard for 15 minutes. I got to focus, and it feels great. And the tradition, the stories of the pibrochs, the stories of the tunes, those are really cool. I'm not as focused on that, and maybe I'm a heathen, really.
If you're not preaching the gospel of the McCrimmons, then you're a.
I'm not, and I feel like a heathen. Really, I ought to be better. Like, I can tell you the story behind the Desperate Battle and all of that stuff, but that's not where the jollies come from. The jollies come from hearing something beautiful and making it, and that really great feeling when you realize, hey, I'm playing an instrument that's hard. Bagpipes are evil. They're hard to play.
They're evil.
I mean, what other instrument is like it's like a horse, right?
Yeah.
Are you hanging on to the horse and still getting there, or are you partnering with the horse? Are you one with the horse?
That is such a good metaphor for it. Like, how often do you feel like you're just barely hanging on and just it's dragging you?
I mean, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. It doesn't matter what kind of tune. If it's getting the tuning right, is it getting the rhythms right? I feel that way all the time. Like, whew, I made it.
Yeah.
But those moments when you feel like you're partnering with your instrument, that's something special.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
don't make it cheesy, but it is something special. And knowing how long it took you to get there, I think that's really special. I played the piano, and yeah, there are moments where you're like, oh, me and the piano are bonding, but usually you hit the key and it sounds the same most of the time.
Yeah.
The bagpipes, when you finally get that lock-in sound, You lock in and you realize that it's staying locked in as you're playing.
Mm.
You're holding it and it's locked in, and your ear just says, "We did it."
Yeah, yeah. I have mused upon that point before, how like maybe precisely because like good tone and tuning are like elusive in bagpiping, that it's that is what makes it so especially satisfying when it comes together.
Oh, it's special. That same thing that makes us desperate to buy anything that will help that tone.
Mm-hmm.
We buy the manometers, we buy the pressure gauges, we buy the tone protectors, we buy the new reed, the new chanter, the new everything.
Yeah.
But when it clicks, it just validates all of those hours. You
Mm-hmm.
feel like, oh, I did it. It's there. Or now it can always be better.
Yeah.
It can always be better. But when you summit, it's something special.
Yeah.
No technology. Maybe your tuner, right? Well, we won't talk about that. Tuners versus non-tuners.
Right.
I mean, use what you got. But
Yeah.
it's just, even with a tuner, getting there, just, it's something that I don't think I've ever seen replicated anywhere else. I think violinists could relate a lot.
Mm.
I think they
That
could relate.
that makes so much sense in that, like, I don't play violin, but I can definitely see how like the violin also is like unwieldy, it would seem,
Yeah.
like it's difficult to get the, precisely because it's so, there are no frets, it's so
Right.
so temperamental and stuff. That's what makes it like magic when someone plays it well.
Oh, yeah.
It emerges from this murkiness.
And that also gives you a little bit of freedom. Now, for pipes, I mean, there's no freedom in not tuning well, but there is a lot of freedom for you as the piper to figure out what works for you.
Yeah.
It's I just wish we all stayed in tune a little bit longer.
Don't
You
we
know,
all though, right?
I mean, those moments where you're like, oh, I'm in tune. How long does it last?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's special and it's cool and it's unique to us. Hard to explain.
Yeah.
Hard to really explain to those that don't get it.
Right.
You just tell an average person on the street, well, we've got 4 reeds and then we've got to tune each note to make sure it's right, and then our blowing, and it's like, that's why it can sound bad, and everyone goes, oh, okay.
Cool.
And you go, but look, there are 25 pipers over there at SFU and they all sound like one piper. Isn't that amazing?
Right.
That's 100 reeds.
Yeah.
And I go, huh? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. My wife often talks to me about how like, like over the years we've known each other since before high school, and so like she's known me since I started playing pipe, since I was a kid. So like over the years of being exposed to it, she's like started to sort of like start to tap into sort of like some of the nuances of like being able to recognize like, oh, that was really good, wasn't it? Or, oh, that wasn't that great, was it? But how like for such a long time it's like it's just all the same, and it's like it's one of the one of these things where like if you don't do it, you don't really get it. You don't really appreciate good versus bad, or like variations in quality and stuff like that.
My wife joined the Scots as a tenor drummer because she got tired of being left behind, and that was a sign. It's like, oh my gosh, I did good.
Yeah, now she's committed, right? She's willing to
I
join
mean,
pipe
all
band
the
for
way.
you.
Funny story. Her family history claims that Ogden, immigrants, Scottish immigrants from the LDS Church. Well, Ben Lomond Peak, the peak that Ben Lomond High School is named for.
Right. Yeah.
Her family history claims that that's, their family named it. You go back.
Oh, really?
And they look at it, and so I can kind of say that it's my wife's fault that I play the bagpipes, because way back in the day somebody said, yeah, we're going to name that mountain Ben Lomond.
Right. And that all snowballs together into making the Ben Lomond High School pipe band and all that stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, who knows? But it's a cool thought.
That's fun. I've heard that I think it's the Ben Lomond Peak that I've heard might have been inspiration for the Paramount Pictures mountain logo. You heard that?
No, but I can see it now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I don't remember. A producer or an owner or something had like lived in Ogden and like doodled it, and it was based off of that peak, or maybe it was another peak. I don't know, but I think that it was Ben Lomond Peak. And
as soon as we're done, I'm looking that up.
Yeah, look it up, because there's a history of like the Paramount logo has changed over time, so maybe it doesn't quite as well match the sort of more fantastical mountain you see today, but in the past it seems to get closer and closer to looking a lot like Ben Lomond Peak.
Huh.
Now, Chris, I've kept you for a while. I've got a couple more questions I could ask you, but if you're feeling, if you've got to go somewhere, I can let you go. How do you feel about it right now?
Bring it on.
Okay, great.
I'm enjoying this. This is fun.
Well, one of the things that I really wanted to ask you about right from the beginning when you said you would be willing to do the interview is recording, precisely. Which,
all right,
because even outside of the COVID stuff, I had this impression that you were a recorder. And that's maybe, again, because of seeing you play Pembroke at the Glen Wild, you got out a mic and a laptop and were recording yourself. And I think you were the only competitor that entire day who did that.
So
and
I recorded everyone that day.
You did. That's right. You were recording everything. And so maybe it's mistaken, but I get this impression that you record a lot. And so I want to know why, when did that get started? What's the interest? What's the value? Which we've kind of talked about a little bit. I also want to know, do you catalog everything? Do you have like a really, like a really well-organized way of cataloging your own playing, others playing, the playing for your group and stuff? And I also want to know, do you have any tips and tricks for pipers who want to record themselves, especially in a time where we're doing that a lot more than ever?
All right.
So just take all of that and run with it. Talk to me about recording bagpipes and drums if you have any experience with that as well.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to mute and blow my nose.
I hear you, man. No worries. I was doing gardening work before we started talking, and I've had like this sort of like low-grade hay fever thing going on through the whole interview, so I've actually muted and blown my nose a few times already.
That smoke, man. Oh, the smoke.
Yeah, the smoke has been terrible.
Oh, yeah. All right. So, recording. I started recording. Oh, when did I really start doing that? I like music. I started playing the piano when I was 8. I was accepted to the University of Utah as a piano performance major.
Oh, I had no idea.
The orientation day, I looked around and saw computers and thought, I bet you that makes more money. And just in like 30 seconds, I sold out my entire live stream and went and earned money instead.
Oh, classic.
I don't regret it. But, I mean, my division in music was split between piano and bagpipes from the moment I got to high school. Yeah. So it was, you can't serve two masters, man. But as far as recording goes, so my setup at home, let's start with that.
Yeah.
I've got a Yeti Blue microphone, and that's it. And I record in a tiny room, a bedroom. It's got carpet, it's got a bed in there, but nothing else, really. And that's never been a problem contest-wise. Like, that's never been any kind of a problem. If anything, it might be a problem because the Yeti microphone records too well, and the judges can hear more. I don't know. If they can hear when you're not breathing perfectly compared to somebody with a lesser quality recording,
right?
I don't know. Maybe that's paranoia. But with the Yeti microphone, I've got the floofy cover that goes on it. I turn up the gain. And if I'm not really happy, I'll put a blanket on top of it. Oh. Now, a lot of the time, an iPhone will fit the bill for just plain old recordings. And you toss it on a bed with a blanket on top. It's not bad. It isn't bad.
Yeah.
Now, it's a little muffled. It's not that piercing, clear gorgeousness, but it will do. And, I mean, are you recording for a CD? Probably not. But if you're recording to hear yourself and to get better, that'll do.
When you are recording with your Yeti, though, are you putting it at chanter level and pointing right at it, or are you putting it like behind you, or are you turning to the side? How do you orient yourself to the mic?
Hold on, I'm looking at the back of the Yeti. So I've got the Yeti set up for the surround sound style, so it's expecting the sound from the front. Oh. So I do point it. I point it at myself. I still put the blanket on it. I put it on a dresser, so it's about at eye level, head level. Okay. And I'll step maybe 5 or 6 feet away from it, as far away as I can. I do know that you don't want to put it in the corner of a room if you can. So just getting away from the corner so that you're not getting the echoes off of the wall, or at least putting the blanket behind it so you're not getting the echoes coming back into it. And generally, that's been enough. Now, I do catalog for myself. I'll catalog every contest that I compete in so that I can kind of... You want a feel-good day? You listen to something from 2 years ago, and then you listen to something now, and you go, "Oh wow,
yeah,
that's better." And then I'll put it onto my phone so I can listen to myself practice, when I'm not there, because, hey, practice time is precious.
Yeah.
You don't want to spend the time listening, but you've got to listen too.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's one of those times that recording on your iPhone works really well, where you don't have to transfer it, you don't have to do anything, you just record it on the iPhone and off you go, you've got it.
Yeah.
But one of my long-term goals would be to do a set of recordings for dance piping. And the recordings that are out there are phenomenal. There is no need for more of them. But if I ever got to that point where I was happy enough to present those and satisfied enough to present those, I'd be proud of that. There's not a lot of money in it.
Have you been thinking to do a set of recordings exclusively, like here are competition recordings for dancers to use, or have you ever thought maybe about like, some kind of instructional packet for pipers to learn how to do dance piping?
I haven't thought about that just because the demand's pretty low, but the information's out there, the information out there to learn how to do it is pretty low too. You need to find a studio. You really need to find some dancers to really play with them and figure it out. And by the way, any dance studio will let you go and practice with them. Any of them. Like Mackenzie's studio here in Bountiful, they'll let me go and play with them whenever. So before a contest, I'll go and practice with them and make sure that we're on the up and up. And they're always really gracious and happy to do that.
Yeah.
The dance piping would be cool. I always thought it would be cool to set up a YouTube channel for dance, for dance piping, so that dancers have an option to, maybe a YouTube live, so they can request what they want to practice and doing that. Again, the demand is low. You're not going to get to the 2.2 million subscribers. It would be a labor of love, right? It would be cool. I've set up a Twitch account for bagpiping for fun because Twitch does musicians and there are no bagpipers there. But even that, our instrument is not going to be one of those viral things, and we all kind of need to accept that. Even the best there are, like Lincoln Hilton, he's one of the more popular pipers that do new interesting things.
Yeah.
You look on Spotify, he's still not breaking 50,000 on some of the coolest stuff that he's done.
Yeah.
So we kind of need to accept that. It would be really cool if we could find a way to go mainstream.
We need another Braveheart moment.
Right?
Yeah, we need another.
A Braveheart moment. Somebody's going to do something meme. I mean, the bad piper, the guy with the flames and the leather kilt.
Yeah.
He's a pretty good piper.
Yeah.
You watch him and you go, okay. Yeah, you know what you're doing. This is fine. Or you've got the unipiper where you just kind of, I mean, we are nice to people in our community. We are not mean people. But when you've got the unicycle, the Darth Vader helmet, the flames, and the whatnot, I mean, it's hard to keep it. And John Williams. So John Williams was not made for bagpipers. Okay, like Star Wars was not made for bagpipes. But if you think about the most famous bagpiping things you can think of, those are the ones, right?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, like I'm with you. Like I can absolutely understand like the frustration that a lot of pipers feel, where it's like, this is our ambassador. That's not what we want. Why can't Lincoln Hilton be our ambassador to the world? Or
I mean, Jack Lee.
Yeah,
anybody else.
Great artists to choose from.
Jack Lee could be famous. We couldn't make him famous.
Yeah,
we could make him
we need
viral.
Is to get Stuart Little on a unicycle.
Oh no.
But at the same time, I do think to myself, like, well, if the Unipiper had never made these videos, what would be different? Maybe even fewer people would be interested in bagpipes than are now. Because, you can't deny that some people did start taking lessons because they saw, like, the sandpiper or the Unipiper or the bagpiper. Like,
you find me one of them. Find me one of them, okay? Because I haven't met one yet, but
yeah,
it's true. It's something, right?
Yeah.
It's something. We need like a sea shanty moment. We need a Wellerman moment.
We need a Wellerman, yeah.
We need something, but
Could
none of us ever did.
Next big surge thing be?
Oh, let's do it. We got to find out how, but none of us ever.
Rab interviewed that. What is that gal's name who's on TikTok? She's a piper. I just listened to his interview a couple weeks ago with her. Anyway, go on. Sorry, Chris. I've been
No,
interrupting
it's
you.
all good. Yeah, a TikTok with techno pipes. You know, I dabble in composing. I've always wanted to see if you could do techno p-rock, which is an abomination. Okay,
Speaking of being a heathen.
it's an abomination to think about. But if you think about some of the trance genres where it's all about losing yourself in the music, that's what p-rock's all about. But p-rock's not about.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, p-rock's not about a steady beat, right? It's not about keeping flat on with the metronome. It's not on the ground.
Right. It wouldn't be the four on the floor club music kind of thing.
No,
but maybe like a meditation track.
But the idea has always intrigued me. Yeah. You know, or a fugue for bagpipes.
Oh, sure.
But our range is low. Like really, we are niche, right? I would love to see the bagpiping world just explode and go viral and go big. We're definitely not. We're not fading, and I think we're growing.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're exploiting it just because bagpipes are a cruel mistress, right? They're a cruel, mean, terrible mistress to get going on. But
well, you know, there have been, you know, everything ebbs and flows, right? And there was a folk music revolution that kind of happened in the second half of the 60s, at least here in the United States, where you know, kind of this more niche sort of genre of music that kind of pulled together multiple different like sort of niche instruments and genres kind of all surged in popularity. And I feel like, is it just that I'm becoming more aware of it, or is that not happening with the folk scene, especially in Western Europe, where you see a lot more bagpipes and folk music in general is getting more attention, and so part of that attention is on bagpipes, and so maybe we do see those sort of like ebbs and flows in interest. Maybe we could have our Wellerman moment.
I hope so, but are they going to be on the Great Highland pipes?
Right,
or are they going to be playing with somebody else?
Yeah.
You know, small pipes. Yeah. Hey, you can play nice with others now.
Yeah.
We don't play nice with others without something else. Like the Scots play for the Kirkin of the Tartan every year, and it takes an organ and a choir to hang with the volume that the pipes out, but we don't play well with other people.
And then you've got all the tuning challenges, of course, too.
That's like my most cringeworthy recording I ever did. A organ major at the University of Utah asked me to play at her senior recital with bagpipes and organ together. A wonderful combination, and there's an ancient book written for bagpipes and organ to go together. Both ancient instruments, and a lot of duets that go together. But the tuning was so difficult on the organ at the U, and I listened to that recording and go, that's a couple cents off. But the concept was so good. It's just, that's a fun combo if you can get the tuning right.
Yeah, I've done a few organ bagpipe pieces that it's always been so fun. I always use a B flat chanter. Did you use a B flat chanter when you did it, or did you just kind of squeeze it?
I just pulled the reed out a lot, and we all know what happens. But we did it, and we thought it was cool. It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that some of my sort of trepidation about it has been removed by talking with Timothy Cummings. He has talked a little bit about just kind of like an embrace of the sort of wild energy that's going to come from smashing the pipe organ and the bagpipes together, like a release of any expectation for like absolute like sort of polished perfection, and rather an embrace of the madness to some degree. You know, it can be enjoyable in that way.
Well, embrace the glory of it. I mean, the organ by itself is just flat out glorious. The choir glorious, throwing the pipes together, and it's just.
It's a lot of noise, man. It's a lot of sound. It can be powerful.
That's the word. It's powerful to do that, and then throw in a song that means something. You almost feel like the ceiling will open up and you'll get called up and raptured right then and there.
Yeah. Well, if your tuning was a little better, maybe, right?
Yeah. You know that old bagpiping joke, right? The welcome to heaven. Here's your bagpipe. Here's your tuner. Welcome to hell. Here's the bagpipe.
Yeah. Very good one.
Let's see. What have we missed on the recording? Have we missed anything that we should be talking about? I'm not sure.
Oh, I think
Someday.
that's some very useful information right there.
That's good. I don't think there's really much else I'm doing with it. The cataloging for myself is mostly there.
Yeah.
I'd love to put together a bagpipe track that you could get into GarageBand or something, and really do those things that you couldn't do with a bagpipe. If you could get a really good bass tone, like a good tone, I mean, the technology's there to give you a full scale, right?
Right, yeah.
And unlock all of those things that people say, Freebird or whatever.
And you can do it.
And you could do it, which maybe it feels like cheating if you're not really playing it. But if the sound's there, I mean, can you get over it? If you're listening to the bagpipe do things that it shouldn't,
Yeah.
Can you get over that, knowing what it should be?
Yeah. Yeah, that is part of the challenge of being in a niche world within a niche world, right? If we get hyper focused on the competition scene, for example, then we can become, what would you call it, like sort of like uppity purists and
Snobs.
Yeah, snobs, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean the one tune that makes me think of that is Pumpkin's Fancy,
Yeah.
because that is your quintessential. Nobody likes.
How
that
dare
tune.
you? Right.
What do you mean you're a grade 4 playing that hornpipe?
Yeah.
You're new to this. You think you're hot stuff.
Yeah.
And then all of the people who could play it won't play it because they don't want to sound like all of the new people that heard it and thought it was great.
Yeah.
But then
in
you
their
look
ignorance liked it. How could they?
or in their ignorance thought they could play it.
That too, yeah.
And then you go online and you look at Pumpkin's Fancy, and one of the first videos you see is Jack freaking Lee playing it at a concert.
Yeah,
and you go, it's like, no, you can be a top shelf piper.
It just got the stamp of legitimacy.
Right? Jack Lee says it's okay, so just be quiet and enjoy the slides, okay?
Yeah. I play that one a lot because that is my wife's favorite bagpipe tune.
It's everybody's favorite,
isn't it?
and it's everybody's favorite. I mean, the slide is one of the few fancy, unique,
cool
goofy things that we can do, right?
Yeah.
And it's cool, but maybe there is a little bit less, decorum that we need. We need to be a little less serious and just be grateful that people are excited about the pipes.
Yeah, take a little starch out of the old collar and just have fun.
Just a little. That doesn't mean we accept, bad playing.
Yeah.
But we should also accept people enjoying it. I mean, you know the Payson and the Ben Lomond thing. We played stuff we shouldn't play all the time there.
Yeah.
And we didn't know better.
I ain't judging, but I do remember. I don't know if you might have been there. Tell me if you remember playing "We Will Rock You" as you marched out of the circle.
All the time.
Because I remember that, and just maybe as a bit of a purist, I don't know. I think I've had a change of heart because I'm definitely way into more like less regimental kind of playing right now. But at the time, I was like, like, really? I don't think we should be doing that in public, my friends.
I mean, we did it at games. We did it.
But it was fun, right? Wasn't it fun?
We let that freak flag fly.
Yeah.
Like we
in for a penny, in for a pound, right? Just gonna go for it.
We had fun. Now, one of the other funny things I heard at Pleasanton in mass bands, I heard a band play Jesus Christ Superstar on their way in.
That's awesome.
And maybe We Will Rock You. I mean, for the record, it works, right? It's not that far off.
Yeah, there are some songs that just you can't. The notes that you have kind of make it so it doesn't really work.
And people enjoyed it and had fun, and maybe that's it. Are we playing pipes for ourselves as a community?
Yeah.
Or are you playing for your audience?
Yeah.
And your audience is nowhere near as highbrow as we are most of the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can think of like how many other like sort of like genres of art, right? Where would it seem at all acceptable for the artist to say, "Here's what you should want," and then they do it, and the crowd listening, right, goes, "I don't actually like that. But I like this other thing," and then the artist says, "You're wrong for liking this other thing."
Oh man,
like, it's a silly thing to be like, "You're wrong for liking this stuff."
And maybe that's why we're still niche, right?
Yep, it might
maybe
be
that's
a self-fulfilling prophecy here.
Maybe we are the hipster instruments. Maybe we are. Maybe we're just bringing that on ourselves. Now, I think we know what we like and we enjoy it. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there are only so many pibroch aficionados who will sit there and listen to all 15 minutes of your pibroch and go, "Oh, that was amazing! Well done, young man."
Yeah.
Because in my head, all pibroch aficionados are old men, anyways. Which is,
well, that kind of makes sense.
I mean, right? So, but then you hear the Cape Breton pipers, right?
Right. Yeah.
The Cape Breton pipers who are playing so that people can get up and
dance, and be into it.
Get down and have fun, and
Yeah.
you go, that's why it survived. That's why it's really still there. You go to a pub and you can still hear some of that fun stuff. The folk music revolution or renaissance or comeback, it's fun.
Yeah.
Those tunes are fun, and they talked about things that people cared about.
Yeah.
Drink, ladies, and boats. I mean,
yeah. that is the trifecta, isn't it?
Those are
subject
timeless,
matter of all these songs.
timeless subjects. Timeless. And so we don't have that in the regimental world.
Yeah.
But we can still make people dance.
Yeah,
We can still...
I really like listening to Jeremy Kingsbury on the We Two Twag Bagpiping and History podcast talk about. He does a lot of like dance tunes in this like sort of 17th, 18th century repertoire of pipers music, and a lot of this is like small pipes, border pipes, uilleann pipes.
Oh, so much fun.
Yeah, and he talks a lot about how like, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but he has mentioned before how like if we're coming from a Highland bagpipe competition backdrop, right? We like assume that is the tradition, and that any kind of kitchen piping or alternative piping is breaking away from tradition, and it's like problematic somehow. But when the competition regimented Highland bagpipe thing became a thing, there were a lot of pipers who hated it. It's like, that's not how music is supposed to be done, right? Because before that, for centuries it was dance music and parlor music and stuff like that, right? And it's like, neither is bad, but to assume that there's only one way to make art is a bit silly, and like we maybe need to expand our view a little bit and recognize that like this is a mode of expression, it's very organic and human and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be fit into these tiny little boxes, though it can be fun when it is. I'm not saying it's bad. But.
Well, I mean, have you ever heard that 3 pillars of piping thing?
Oh no, tell me about it.
So I wish I could tell you who told me about it, but oh no, Matt Turnbull. Matt Turnbull, he's a dance piper, and he used to, when we played at one of the championships that they did in Utah at the USIR, they let me tag along and do a little bit there, but he said, most pipers are missing 2 of the 3 pillars of bagpiping. And there is regimental music, that is one of the pillars, but dance is one of the pillars that everybody ignores. And then pibroch, the real heavy music, that's the other one. And I feel like a lot of pipers are missing that. And listening to Matt say that made me think, oh wow, I need more pibroch. But it really kind of makes sense. March, strathspey, reel, hornpipe, reel, jig. That's it. That's what most people in a band setting will get.
Yeah. Maybe
you'll get fancy with a ground of a pibroch here and there. Maybe dancers will come in for you once in a while, and everyone will scramble to play a strath for them. But there's more. I mean, look at Fred Morrison. Oh man, there's a guy who's having a good time.
Yeah.
And if we're not going to go viral, we should at least have a good time like he is.
Yeah.
Well, we will go viral. We'll figure it out. This podcast will do it, right?
That's right. This will do it. I think